Yes, it's major history and returning to podcasting after brief hiatus, several days, celebrating Labor Day, September the 1st, 2025. I guess in might say remembrance of that uh, podcasting day on this subject of possible deployment of federal troops in the city of Chicago. According to the latest news reports, city officials in Chicago believe that President Donald J. Trump will deploy troops, National Guard troops in Chicago in a matter of days, not weeks, similar uh, as he has done in the last week or two in Washington, D.C. Uh, on Labor Day, city officials, including Mayor Brandon Johnson, had decried such use as an aberration, illegal, unlawful, and unwanted uh, in the city of Chicago. Now, this reminds me of several historical events related to this possible deployment. Uh, Chicago has endured many emergencies in times past. The Great Chicago Fire of the 1870s wiped out a substantial portion of the city, and the big race riot in Chicago in 1919 cost many lives and um, dead and wounded. So these are scenarios which will probably warrant the imposition of federal authority. According to city officials in Chicago, this does not present circumstance does not rise to the level of that type of emergency that Chicago may have experienced in times past. And there's a historical parallel. During the advent of the Nazi regime in Germany, there was a so-called fire in the parliament building called the Reichstag. This fire, many observers at the time believed was started by the regime of Nazis, Germany themselves, to warrant imposition of martial authority and totalitarian rule in that country to deprive citizens of the civil liberties in the guise of alleged emergency. Now, while I do believe there are some similarities uh, between that and the present situation, I'm at no time alleging that that this government of the United States is similar to Nazi Germany or that Trump is Hitler. I'm just only stating that there are maybe some similarities between the two events, and I'll stop there. So, in my estimation, if these troops are sent to the city of Chicago, uh, and then I do not think it will be a long-lasting solution and will not impact in a significant way on the crime in Chicago, as federal troops are not authorized to conduct arrests and criminal investigations as the local police are legally authorized to do. And I believe in due time, the the folly of this exercise will be exposed, and they will inevitably be withdrawn. Uh, my estimation in a very short time, if they are indeed deployed, and we'll just have to wait and see if they will be deployed as President Trump has threatened to do in the coming days. We'll just have to wait and see what develops from that. Thank you. Yes, this is major history, and I'm doing this podcast in memory commemoration of Father James Coyle. Father James Coyle was a Roman Catholic priest from Ireland, which in the 19th century and early 20th century was part of the United Kingdom. He came to this country and was consecrated as a priest and officiated at a church, Roman Catholic church in Birmingham, Alabama. Tragically, he lost his life in the performance of his holy obligations in marrying a couple deemed as being interracial at the time by some. Uh, Father Coyle married a lady by the name of Ruth Stevenson, a recent convert to Catholicism and a person of Puerto Rican nationality. I believe his name was Pedro Guzman. And this marriage was completed, officiated by Father Doyle, and stirred anger in some quarters, particularly amongst members of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. And the Ku Klux Klan had amongst its members the father of the bride. Mr. Stevenson took upon himself, in a fit of rage and anger, to take the life of Father James Coyle, who's, as I said, officiated the ceremonies at the marriage of the so-called interracial couple. And this was in the year 1921. And every year, that Roman Catholic Church in Birmingham commemorate his sacrifice and performance of his priestly duties, the sacrament of marriage, which is a part of the sacramental system of the Roman Catholic Church. And he is well remembered and well honored in Birmingham, Alabama, amongst Catholics and non-Catholics alike. His legacy will not long be forgotten, will not soon be forgotten by the people of Birmingham and there and abroad. Father James Coyle, a martyr of the Roman Catholic Church and a pioneer in breaking the taboos uh, upheld by some racist individuals, and he helped break the bonds of the chains of oppression and discrimination, and his sacrifice will always be remembered. Thank you. Yes, it's major history, and a question was posed to me the other day that do I think that this current government of Donald J. Trump used methods comparable to Nazi Germany under Hitler in the 1930s. Um, in some aspects, there are some similarities between the methodology of the Nazis and this current Trump administration. Um, that's not to say that this Trump administration is a Nazi government or it promotes Nazism, but does have some authoritarian traits reminiscent of dictatorial regimes using strong arm methods, uh, propaganda to criminalize and demonize classes of people such as immigrants and homeless people without just cause. So there are some aspects of that can be legitimate charged with aspects of dictatorial authoritarianism with streaks of overtones of fascism. However, fascism and Nazism is not synonymous. Um, the Hitler regime was rabidly anti-Semitic, and as history shows us, he acted upon that in a very methodical and cruel fashion. Um, this government of Trump is not overtly anti-Semitic. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump's daughter is married to a Jew, Jared Kushner, and I understand she herself has converted to Judaism. So Nazism, one of its central tenets is anti-Semitism. Having said that, that's not to say that the Trump administration does promote views can be interpreted as being racist and harmful to minorities, especially especially people of color. Deportations, incarcerations, and mass incarceration, places like the Alligator Alcatraz and other detention facilities. And also, quite recently, Donald Trump has federalized the police force in the nation's capital on very spurious grounds, comparing D.C. to Bogota, Colombia, uh, Baghdad, and so forth. But the facts do not justify his actions, and to me, it's more or less a political theater without any valid justification or legitimacy. So, in conclusion, I will say that there are some aspects of authoritarianism and some tracism of dictatorial and very authoritarian prerogatives, but that in itself does not equate itself to uh, Hitler's Germany or Nazism. Thank you. Yes, this is Major History, and I'm doing this as a way of a follow-up report on the selection of Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota to be the prospective vice president candidate on a ticket of Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, and her request to become first female president of the United States. And there is precedent for such a breakthrough on a local level here in Philadelphia. We elected the first woman, the first African American woman to hold the office of mayor of Philadelphia in a 300-odd year history of the city of Philadelphia. So it would not be unwise to speculate that there may be a breakthrough on the horizon, as it was several years ago with the election of Barack Obama. However, getting back to the subject of her selection of Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, traditionally, the selection of a vice president during a campaign generates a lot of excitement, enthusiasm amongst the rank and file, and followed closely by the media initially. But history shows us that once the candidate assumes office, the vice president basically fades into the background. And actually, sometimes even before the candidate assumes office of the president, more often than not, the vice president is relegated to a supporting role. The majority of attention focused on the top of the ticket. And I basically feel this campaign of Harris and Walz will be no different. Usually the vice president causes not much of a controversial stir unless he steps out of his role. Candidates have chosen good vice presidents and sometimes not so great vice presidents. Richard Milhous Nixon chose in his first term Mr. Spiro Agnew, governor of Maryland, was turned out to be an exceedingly bad choice. Controversy followed him wherever he go. He got into inner sparring matches with the causing great embarrassment to the administration of Nixon, and ultimately he was forced to resign, caught up in a scandal while he was governor of Maryland. Probably to the great relief of President Nixon, he chose subsequently Gerald Ford for his second campaign for office. And normally, except in emergency situations, unforeseen situations, through the stepping down of from the campaign of President Biden in '68, when President Johnson announced he was not running for another term in office. Only these type of situations where a vice president assumes a greater posture in the American political landscape, as in the case when FDR in his fourth term passed away, not unexpectedly, and his vice president, Harry S. Truman, assumed the office of the presidency. And as I said before, sometimes the selection of a vice president can be fortuitous or quite uh, adverse, depending on the choice. Vice President Truman, who assumed office, underrated president, actually was quite successful upon assuming office of the presidency. It made many accomplishments and achievements during his term. On the other side, Abraham Lincoln's choice of Andrew Johnson as vice president turned out to be a rather adverse choice. His term was marked by controversy, scandal, and reverse the march toward equality for African Americans. His term in office was nothing short of disastrous, and actually he was the first president to be rendered articles of impeachment during his rule. So only time will tell whether Vice President Harris' choice was a wise one or beneficial one, and we'll yet to discover this if and when she's elected. Thank you. Yes, this is major history, and I would like to comment briefly on some news that's been in a focus of attention overseas. I call it temples of doom. Recently, Thailand and Cambodia engaged in a border conflict, which has claimed dozens and injured and some killed on a disputed border area between the two countries. This border area is the site of several ancient Hindu Buddhist temples, some dating from the 11th century, and both sides claim ownership of it. This dispute has been in effect for at least since the 1700s, if not before that, over the ownership of these vast and quite ornate temples. More recently, international courts have ruled in Cambodia's favor of at least one of these temples, which is disputed by Thailand. And this is a pervasive problem internationally. That's the only area that has been claimed wholly by one party or another. And in the Holy Land, Jerusalem has been a linchpin of dispute between Arabs and Israelis for decades, both claiming as a holy ground site of sacred temples and mosques. Recently, a far-right minister has went up to the Temple Mount, which is the site of Islamic holy sites, in contravention of protocol, inflaming, exacerbating tensions in the Arab-Israeli dispute. So this dispute between Thailand and Cambodia is long-standing and will not end in the near future. And lives may be lost in the future for its ownership. And this is ironic, to say the least, that a place of worship and veneration for two Buddhist countries. Cambodia is known to be probably the most heavily Buddhist country in the world. Over 95% of the population is considered Buddhist. So I don't think that this dispute will end in the near future. And for the many civilians caught up in the middle of this conflict, sustaining injuries and damage to their property. This may, for them, become temples of doom, unfortunately. So we'll see how this plays out. Thank you. Yes, major history again, and there's been some recent developments in the Ukraine-Russian conflict that I would like to comment on. Uh, Russia, according to recent reports, has just completed one of the largest, if not the largest, air assaults against Ukraine since the conflict started 3 years ago. Hundreds of drones and missiles cascaded upon Ukraine capital and other cities, 4 or 5, inflicting serious damage from the various infrastructure, residential areas, and critical support venues. At the beginning of this conflict, uh, many commentators were rather derisive of Russian military capability, and with good reason. They fumbled and stumbled at the very onset. But as the conflict grinds on into the third and possibly fourth year, Russia has rebounded, landed on its feet, and with considerable help from outside allies, including North Korea, Iran, and possibly China, has inflicted significant, substantial damage upon the Ukrainian military on land and in the air. Not so much at sea. But notwithstanding that, it's highly conceivable that Russia, in the long term, might turn the tide of war in its favor. And it's been historically true. In past history has taught us once the Russian bear awakens, it's a formidable foe. The Russo-Japanese War of 1904-1905, Russia sustained devastating losses in the sea and on our land, crippling losses. But that was not the end of the story between Japan and Russia. In the Second World War, Russia inflicted devastating and permanent losses upon the Japanese military in the closing weeks of the Second World War in the Far East. They evidently stumbled in Afghanistan, but they've proven in the area of this area of renewed European conflict, where they believe, whether justifiably or not, that their vital interests are at stake. They mobilize their considerable resources to gain a battlefield advantage. And they may prevail if this an attritional conflict where they have superior resources that they can bring to bear. So I would say that the Russian bear is starting to awake and may eventually prevail, or if not, uh, impose a stalemate, which will require political negotiations in their favor. Thank you.